So first of all, that was my fault. I admit it. Right.
Yeah,
We,
dude.
we
So we are. This is a second attempt at a podcast that we are recording. Just honesty's sake and clarity's sake, we were trying to do an episode, and things went so off the rails
yeah.
that we like lost time, and like we were only talking about Frasier. There was a big discussion on getting whammed, which is
Yeah.
recorded. We might clip that out and put that somewhere.
I
Um,
think so. Yeah.
I feel like for clarity's sake, to everyone involved who watches this, A, thank you for being here. B, um, we'll release some of that, but
We
the
will.
reason
Yeah.
why we have a 15-minute time limit is because if things get off the rails, we can go, oh, that went off the rails, let's redo that. And we just had one of those, like a
Yeah.
big one of those where like I wouldn't stop talking about Frasier, and it's sort of a recap.
Yeah. Well, which is actually kind of like amazing because I mean I feel like we kind of go off the rails most of the time, but like
Yeah,
this was like it wasn't just off the rails. It was like it was like on an entire
dude,
different
it was
different landscape.
flying.
My
We
God.
really should have just decided to talk about Whamageddon again. It
We
should have been
should
a Whamageddon retrospective, but instead it became Whamageddon and the
have.
moral responsibility of friends
Exactly.
and what the hell is Frasier about.
Yeah.
So with
But
that
anyway,
emotional labor done at the beginning,
mhm.
hi Andrew.
Hello, Brandon.
Oh yeah,
All right.
so I took a I want to I got permission to talk to you about this beforehand, but we've talked a lot about being a good art student and what that means, and I stand by all the stuff we said. But I think it is worth talking about, and especially for like both fairness and for knowing what you need to look for as being a student of the art. You've taught art for a long time, right?
Mhm.
I mean, you don't have to
Yeah.
give absolute times, but like years and years and years, right? Um, and you've seen a lot of people teach art. What do you think makes people good at teaching art? And what should you look out for as a student that so you know that this might not be the place you need to be?
So
And
so
what
here's
responsibilities do you think a person who teaches art has?
what responsibilities? Is that what you
Yeah.
said? Yeah. So, well, I think that one of the things that I've been sort of thinking about relatively recently, like in the last, couple years, um, compared to compared to the way that I've been teaching before, is that I think that you kind of have to have this healthy balance of well, okay, let me back up a little because there's I'm sure you find with a lot of your classes and teachers and stuff like that, there's certain uh, you know, teaching tropes that you might come across, and um, there's are uh, things that are kind of repeated cliches, that, and I think in a way those are kind of huh,
Are you saying like phrases and stuff that are repeated, or like ways of thinking that are repeated, or like character things that are repeated? Like, can you explain what you mean by teaching tropes?
well, okay, one that comes up really often with music
Uh huh.
is the idea of like when you're on stage, and if you make a mistake, then if you make a mistake and you just keep going, then no one's going to notice. Like
Hmm.
that's a cliche that you hear all the time. Okay.
Yes.
Um, and I think that that's something important that people need to hear if they're a beginning musician.
Yes.
Um, but if if you really want to break it down, it's not true, right? People are going to notice if you make mistakes.
Hmm.
And with what I think is like that's okay.
Hmm.
It's okay if people notice, like making mistakes is just part of a performance. Like that's why we do it live. If you want a perfect performance, then that's what a recording is for. Like a recording is like the chance where you can just get everything exactly the way you want it, right?
Hmm.
But the whole point of a live performance is that there's risk involved, right? And and that's part of the magic of it. Like that's why we feel that performing high, afterwards, because okay, we got through it,
Yes.
and all that. So like that cliche is important because you've got to have the mentality of, okay, yes, you've got to get through it, right?
Mhm.
But then you also have to acknowledge that, okay, yeah, I mean, some people are going to notice, and that's okay. And like, so I think that what a more realistic approach is like, okay, if you make a mistake and you keep going, maybe some people are going to notice.
Mhm.
But uh, if you make a big deal of it, um, people, you know, they're going to remember it, and they're going to remember it for a long time.
Mhm.
Um, but if you keep going and you just uh, and you just go on to the next, you keep going and you just, keep the flow and just make the future, concentrate on the future,
Mhm.
then what I think is more realistic is that people will forgive you,
Mhm.
and in some cases they might forget, but they might not forget, but more importantly, I think they will forgive you, because, you know, they don't want to harp on the bad things either, they want to have a good enjoyable experience, so I think like that's kind of like the balance. Like you need to have that cliche, but you also need to have a more realistic approach,
Mhm.
and so I think that that's one of the things that I've been thinking about, like just with my own teaching, I think is that with all that. So I don't know if that answered your question or not, but
It certainly starts to answer the question. It's an
yeah,
interesting way of pointing out that like it's easy to fall into easy sayings that you were told and
yeah,
not to examine them. And I
exactly.
think that's like one of the frustrating things I can sometimes feel as like someone who takes classes,
Mhm,
um, is like also I think I'm paying money and I'm paying time
mhm,
to go to this thing. And let's assume I'm doing this class in good faith. That the student is taking the class in good faith. Um, I don't necessarily want easy tropes. I
mhm,
want to be able to continue, but I want to deepen my knowledge base and I want to learn stuff that I couldn't learn without coming here.
mhm,
Like, and I think it's easy to be more interested in filling the time than in adding new and important information that I can use.
mhm,
And I think like a lot of times you can get lost in I feel like saying like, now remember, like just keep going. There, no one will notice. It's been said enough. We're giving that sentence away for free. Now you're giving the other sentence away for free. You fool. You've given your class
mhm,
away. Um, but I think that like when I take a class, I don't expect forbidden knowledge. I think that's an unrealistic thing that to take
mhm,
to get out of to one out of a class. And I think that's if someone is offering you tricks of the trade that no one else will ever teach you, I think there's a level of suspicion that you should have. I'm not even saying don't take those classes, but I think there's a level of if someone's like only I have this information because like it's information, you know what I mean? Like
mhm.
it will get out. So uh I also like how do you balance interacting with a student and correcting them and also not like crushing their tiny little spirits? Like how do you deal with that? Because I know each person is individual. Is that something you've learned over time? Is that something that is still hard? Was it ever hard for you? How does learning to correct and keeping enthusiasm up, how do you deal with how do you as a teacher deal with that?
I think in general I'm probably
Brutal.
overly well. um actually, I think it's the opposite. I might be almost overly positive,
Mhm.
in some ways, and I mean, what I try to do is, um, I try to give encouragement, and I try to give constructive feedback, but I do tend to always wrap it in a very positive light, and I'm not the reason I'm not saying that like to make myself look good. I'm saying it actually because sometimes I think I do it too much. Like I think I actually could put a little edge on myself. Because I tend to be I'm kind of a people pleaser in some ways.
Mhm.
And so, I want people to feel good, about things. And I so I think my style tends to be a positive and maybe in some cases maybe overly positive. Um, if that makes any sense.
No, I totally get that.
Yeah.
So I work with young people and I'm trying to
Mm,
teach them how to basically, I don't even say carpentry. That's not what I'm saying. I'm trying to teach them how to tool a little bit. Like
mm,
that's really the way. There's a whole different level that we're not even looking at right now. We're talking about pretty basic stuff. And it's it I can also find myself being overly positive, especially because like sometimes, and it's not their fault, but when I
mm.
have this level of expertise and you have this level of expertise, it's sometimes hard to be like, just do the thing, just
Right.
do it. So instead, you sort
Yeah.
of like, I'm not sure if it's overcorrect, but it feels like you could overcorrect
Mm,
into like, yeah, well, you're good at buddy. It is tough. And
yeah.
like, there is it must be difficult as someone who doesn't really teach to find to give them strength and to also give them grace must be a tightrope walk every time, especially
Mm,
because you don't want to like you don't want to you want to get results. You don't need to be tough or anything,
mm,
and it's easy to forget like I'm in charge, I'm the one making rules. But if you're doing it for the long haul, like you are, it's not so much that I'm in charge, I'm making rules. It's I want you to get something out of this so that you go and are successful. I don't,
mm.
uh, that is a very for me, and I have no interest in teaching. I don't like people that much. Um, and like, how often have you just had a little bit of like I don't know, you just got to figure it out, dude? Is that something that you keep in there, or will you hold hands the whole time?
No, I mean like that definitely comes up, especially if it's because the thing is like also as I'm trying to like map things out and like sort of think through this in my head, sift I'm sifting through all these ideas in my head right now because this
Good.
is yeah,
Yeah, the one before this that failed was about Frasier.
right, exactly. Um it's there's so many different kinds of students, and also, but not only different kinds of students, there's also different teaching situations. And sometimes in classes, you have all of that. You've got, the different teaching situations, and you've got a bunch of different students in the same classroom. So all of that's there. And those are kind of the hardest ones. And now the thing is like, because, you know, I just talked about like being too positive, but the thing is like this past semester, um, I I had a really frustrating experience with a couple of students, and it was in one of those big class, like a big class, and so honestly, like the thing that troubles me most about that class is not so much like that I had a hard time. It's that I don't feel like I gave the students what they should have been given, and in both ways, like because like there were some really good students in that class that like I feel like in a different situation I really could have bonded with,
Mm,
and I could have like had a great experience with like I have in past classes, um, but I was kind of unable to because of the situation. And so for those, I feel guilty about those students, and then the students who I was having trouble with, like, I feel guilty about them because, like, I mean, they didn't really seem like they were interested in learning, and that kind of thing. Maybe I could have
how do you reach these kids? Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Like, how do I reach them? So,
yeah, and
so
it's such a like I don't know. I wasn't a great student, I'm always very open about that. It took me a long time to learn how to learn, and I think one of the big things about this podcast is me looking at people who want to work in the arts in any way, shape, or form, and going, "This is how you try to learn how to learn."
mhm,
But God, this we could do this 2 or 3 times, honestly.
yeah, yeah,
Because there's a moment in teaching where you have to move past technique and move into artistry, and uh, for you, like there's one thing to teach scales and to teach this, and
mhm,
like you can teach theory, but at some point you do have to go, okay, now I need to see what your art is, and we need to
yeah,
talk about what your art is, and this is not, you really are a person who has to try to balance both when dealing with students, because you're dealing
Yeah,
with people who are kind of don't know nothing or know a little bit or know quite a lot.
yeah.
Um,
And with the the teaching the place that I teach and the and that kind of thing, like it's I guess students across all of that spectrum, like if I was
yeah,
teaching, yeah, like if I was teaching at a place like like a Juilliard or a Peabody or something like that. I mean, like the level of student that comes in there, there's a certain level that's always gonna, be, and so
it's
you don't
always
have to, yeah,
that base stuff is already always done for you, but this is not
exactly,
true. You're dealing with a lot of different skill levels,
exactly,
sometimes
yeah,
in if the same class.
exactly,
Uh,
yeah.
and trying to find that balance.
Mhm.
Do you have any pithy words of wisdom to figure out how to try to find that balance?
Well, I no, I don't. I think it's something that I'm constantly, kind of working with, and I think that the thing that has made it work, like when it does work, and like I guess because of this class this past
If it's a live
semester,
performance, it doesn't always work.
yeah, exactly. Um, it's but when it does work, I think the reason it works is because what I really try to do is like build a community, and I think that's really important because it's like, if it's a live performance, or it's just a classroom situation or whatever, like the people, we're still in the room together, and those have been the best experiences. Like when I've had amazing classes that we get to the end of the semester and it's like, you feel that it's like the theater bond, that you have, and it's because of that community, with all of that. So are we at the end already?
Yeah, dude,
Oh,
that was
geez,
the end. We did it. Yeah, we have
that was
another. Yeah,
crazy.
we're probably gonna do this one again. We've
Yeah, I like this
talked.
stuff.
I feel like until this moment, we've talked a lot about being what it means to be a student of the
Mhm,
arts. I think it is might be a thing that is worth exploring is
mhm.
what it means to be a teacher of the arts.
Yeah,
Um, and we're probably gonna do this one a couple times. And then every once in a while, we're just gonna talk about Frasier.
exactly. All
Sandra.
right. Peace.